Y'all ready to hear me talk one more time? I'm gonna drive you crazy now, but you're gonna miss me when I'm gone. Welcome back, hope your morning was productive. Hope the lunch is decent, looks good from up here. Looking forward to closing out the series of discussions this week with an old subject that's sort of very close and near and dear to my heart. I started in the audio video business back in the days when we sold CD players as new gadgets, and VCRs went with every TV. I think I want to sort of bring that discussion back around, because audio is one of those neglected disciplines now, because we all take it for granted. So assembled a group of audio experts up here, sort of a motley crew of audio guys, and Tara at the other end, to talk about it today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and we'll get started.
I'll go first. My name's Alex Loft. So I'm out of the Bravis Nashville branch. Been around almost 9 years now, and loving every minute of it. Seen a lot of change, and excited to be here.
You look older than 9.
No, I've been in the AV business 9 years. I'll be going 35 in May.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. I'm Frank DeFilippis with Sonos. Sonos is based in Southern California. I'm based in Atlanta. I'm the Builder Channel lead for the company, and excited to be here today.
Okay, good seeing you, Frank. I'm Jason Dominique. I'm with MSC Audio. You're probably not familiar with that name, but you're probably familiar with Phase Tech speakers, Rockoustic, SoundTube. So we do products for commercial, residential, outdoor solutions. We're a true manufacturer, but what's interesting is a lot of the stuff you see and that goes in homes, we've either designed or engineered. So I'm just a sales dude. So thank you.
How are you? My name is Tara. I work for Kenneth Bonnet and Son Construction. We're based in Boston. I'm here today because prior to my life at Kenneth Bonnet, I was working for an integrator for 5 years, so I kind of understand both worlds, and I'm happy to be here today.
Awesome, thank you. There's a lot of slides in this presentation, and I'm not going to read them all to you. I just want them to be there so you have a point of reference to what we're talking about and where we're going. Just want to have a really fun AV discussion, more A than V, but talk about what we can do to sort of bring back and revive one of the most important parts of an integrated system that sort of gets forgotten sometimes. So AV really did used to mean audio video. How many of you guys use the term low voltage contractor, integrator, AV guy? Uses the AV guy? Yeah. AV guys do a whole lot more than AV, but there's a reason they're called AV guys, because we all started there, right? I think everybody that's been in this business more than 10 or 15 years started with audio or video or a combination of the two. So audio really is an important part of the smart house, but it's not the focus anymore. Would anybody say they spend more time on audio than lighting? More time on audio than security? More time on audio than television? No. So, and it's unfortunate, because it's one of the coolest features in the house and probably one of the most used next to lighting. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yep. So I'm going to read every word of every one of these slides for you about why music is so important. But this is kind of an interesting slide. There's 2 of them, and there's something interspersed with it. But I asked AI why music was important, and this is what it came back with. But I agree with every one of these points. Stress reduction. Does anybody listen to music while they're working? Do you like it as background music? Is it foreground music? Okay. Yeah, it keeps me focused. I play it pretty loud. I work from home now. I used to work in a noisy office, and now that I'm home, I like to listen to it loud. It keeps me focused on what I'm working on, and keeps out the distractions and the noises around the house. Let's run through these. Frank, you put this slide together. Why don't you tell us about this a little bit?
Yeah, so a few years ago, when we launched Apple Music on our platform, we participated in a research study. It's common sense that music makes you feel good, sets the mood, but we wanted to identify some empirical evidence of that. So we did a Music Makes It Home study, which I'd be happy to share with anybody who wants to read the details, but it actually showed that music allowed listeners to form an emotional connection with the people they were with in that space, and even form an emotional connection with the space they were in. And so just like getting a good night's sleep or exercise or eating well, music's good for your health. And we thought that was really important. And so we factored that into a lot of our conversations with the trade, with construction, model home designers, and it's really the backbone of everything we do at Sonos.
Yeah, I mean, Alex, we're in Music City. You live here. They call it Music City for a reason.
That's right.
Why is it so important to this town? Why is it so important in general?
Oh man, like Frank here said, I mean, music can set the tone or the mood that you're in, and so I mean, I bet every single one of you heard something somewhere on the way in this morning. Whether it's start the car, turn the music on, that's our daily life, and we're surrounded by it. And so, one of the things that I often tell clients of mine is I'm of the age where I didn't grow up with whole home audio, right? We did have an intercom system, but much like all of them, they didn't sound great and barely worked. But now, every home we do has some kind of incorporated whole house audio. So it is around us. We want it to be convenient. We want it to be customized. And more so than anything, we want to enjoy it.
Do any of your homes that you build have no audio in them?
Well, no, almost all of them have it.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's part of the conversation that we have with our client too, the expectation, the type of music they listen to, what their expectation, where they want music, whole home. Is it going to be greater in their family room versus bedroom, kitchen area? So it's definitely a big conversation, and everybody so far has done it.
Frank, you've got some stats here, I think. I don't know if you can see them on that screen to read.
Yeah, these are some of the stats that came out of the study, and some of these are obvious. Some of these were a little surprising, but it helps, remind us all that it's not just about music, right? There's a lot of sound that happens in a living space, whether you're, binge watching a Netflix series, whether it's live sports, whether you're listening to a podcast, in a master suite while you're getting ready for the day. So it's important that we give it the proper attention, and it's absolutely a consideration during construction and design. As Tara said, it's not an afterthought, and at Sonos, we have a very successful retail brand, right? So it's easy to say, well, it's wireless, it's a post-close consideration, and I'd argue that. I'd say that the optimal setup for a homeowner is one that's considered into the infrastructure of the home. Leverages architectural, and there's all sorts of passive speaker options. Jason's company's got quite a few. And this all should be considered at the front end design phase of a project.
Yes, absolutely.
As Tara said. So.
The one that stood out to me is that people pick bars and restaurants based on the music that's playing. Right. That happened last night. I couldn't get Greg Hardwick to stay in the same place because he didn't like that. So one more slide about why music is important. Multi-room audio. We all touched on that. We've all done these systems before. We'll get to the electronics portion of it in a little bit. But initially, let's talk about the types of speakers that go in. So Alex and Tara, I'm going to let you two address this, and Jason, maybe you can do it as well.
Sure.
But, speakers react differently in different spaces, right, and different locations. So how do we decide what speaker to use, where to put them, just how to design an audio system properly for residents? I think the default, would you agree, is just to throw them up in the ceiling and say, let's just check that box and move on?
Mm-hmm. Well, aesthetics are super important to our clients. So, if there's downlights that are square aperture, we're not going to put probably any type of saucer near that. We typically will want to match that aperture and make it look aesthetically pleasing, that you don't actually see the sound but hear it. A lot now is invisible speakers. A lot of people are looking to do that. So there's nothing on the ceiling. They'll put them in the ceiling or on the wall. That's a big ask and request. But we also do, the beautiful $20,000 tower. We actually sometimes take and remove speakers and place them in people's home, and so that's why the conversation is so important on the expectation of music and all the aesthetics and what their expectation is from the start.
I think too, when we look at whole house audio, is in our our initial plan is sound in the living room, sound in the kitchen, sound in the master bedroom, but we forget about the master bath. We forget about the kids' rooms, maybe a game room or an office. You mentioned you work from home. And so, that is a critical part because, if you look at the amenities that we put in homes a lot of times, whether it be a stove or a cooktop or a swimming pool, pools are only used 6 months out of the year, 8 months out of the year, just depends on where you are and who uses it. The kids when mom and dad are home or something, but music is used by everybody. It's used every day, 7 days a week. So, you want your kids listening to music in their bedroom sometimes because you might not agree on their music, but also too, music transcends generations. There's those times where, you can play a song and all of a sudden your kids are dancing to the song that you grew up as a kid with. And there's an energy to that.
So Alex, how do you decide where to put a speaker?
So a lot of times it is a designer's choice, right? Or he or she tells us where not to put the speakers. But most of the time, as you guys have already mentioned, in the entertainment spaces, right? The kitchen and living room, master suite is a popular option. Porches, here in the South, a lot of porch sitting. And then we move into the outdoor space. But more often than not, I think it does just get thrown up in the ceiling, maybe high up in the walls. And yeah, there's music, and for the average user, it's acceptable music, and it gets the job done. As Tara mentioned, there's a variety of different form factors that these speakers can look like, and the Invisibles, one of my favorites. You get great music, and everyone's happy, right? The designer's happy because there's not a grill anywhere, and then the performance of these speakers has gotten much better over the years. There are some rules. If we're doing a surround sound room, we obviously have to get them assimilated in a form that meets the surround sound, left, right, center, rears, things like that. But for the most part, they do get up in the ceiling. If we have a project with the designer, there's a lot more input on the speaker technology, and sometimes they are small aperture, like you mentioned, and they can get cut into tongue and groove ceilings. They can be hidden, things like that. We can do any type of ported sub, small aperture, and the sub mechanics are elsewhere and get ported into the room. So increasingly, we have ways to match what a designer and homeowner may want.
Do you do demonstrations for clients?
We do. So at our showroom in Franklin, a little bit south of here, we have a theater that has towers. Of course, you got to showcase your towers, but we have a surround sound setup that has Invisibles. So our showroom, kind of a modern feel with a little musical influence, but in our theater, we have all Invisibles. And so you can experience that sound and see nothing. In our show kitchen, same thing. We have a pair of Invisibles above the island. So you get that music coming right down on you, and the lighting and the chandelier look great. And then we do have our, I believe they're 8-inch, just to showcase what maybe a budget-conscious homeowner may want.
One thing, in the Boston marketplace, there's a lot of brownstones and challenging areas in which we can fit things. So many times the invisible speakers have worked out for us because we don't have the space in the ceiling, and we have to work with what we have, and it has been a great solution.
Nice. So how many builders in this room what's the best way to phrase this? How many of you sent your clients someplace to listen to audio, to listen to a pair of speakers, or understand what it should sound like? Okay, all right, a few of you, that's great. I would sort of liken it to test driving a car. If you go to the Ferrari dealership first, everything else is probably going to pale in comparison. And that's one of the dangers of sending somebody someplace like that. But what it does mean is it opens up a conversation about the importance of the other factors that we didn't touch on just yet. So if I bought a $50,000 pair of speakers and wheeled them into that door and set them up on the stage, they're going to sound a certain way. If I took those speakers out across the hall to the room that's 3 times the size, they're going to sound different. There are ways to predict how they're going to perform, but the location of those speakers is really important. If I stuck them both facing each other on the stage, they'd sound very different than if I turn them facing you out there. So there's a lot of considerations. So I guess the theme that's going to kind of run through this whole conversation is don't shortchange the audio. So if somebody would appreciate a nice pair of speakers, make sure that they have all the things that go along with that. So the electronics match, the wiring matches, the locations are correct, the room is set up properly. Sort of maximize the value of what they're investing in that particular product. There's a series of slides with speaker types here. You've got a show and tell piece, I think.
Yeah, this is one, and this is where, back we talk about, you're building the house. This is your project, and it's your name on it. This kind of product, talk about invisible sound, goes behind mirrors in a master bathroom. A lot in some homes, they're doing the curved ceilings. You can't put speakers in. So if you want invisible sound, you can put this behind drywall. You can put it behind a mirror. Some people put it behind glass railings. Steam showers. There are people who have the really nice, elaborate steam shower. You can't put speakers in there because you'll be replacing them very often. This goes on the outside, but it envelops you in sound. But what's unique about this is some people actually have seen this already, but they're finding new ways of putting this underneath countertops on an island kitchen. So you can get creative with it. And you're building a home, and you've heard that saying curb appeal. That curb appeal also includes the sound when you walk into it, like the restaurant you were saying. You never walk into a restaurant unless, if you hear sound and TVs going, some sort of excitement and energy. If you don't hear it, you kind of think they're closed, and you close that door.
So yeah, in the speaker world, when you're selling speakers, when you're on our end of the deal here, you've got a combination of form and function, right? So you've got what they look like and what they sound like. So where you're always going to end up is you want them to look good and sound good, which means you're in the most expensive category of speaker right there. Not necessarily the most expensive speaker, but the most expensive in each one of those categories. Some of the slides we flip through here will show you what the different speakers look like. This is a very popular system. You'll see this sort of migrated from outdoors to indoors. Outdoor speaker installers figured out a long time ago that putting 2 speakers on the house and turning them all the way up to reach the pool was probably not the best solution. So they started using more speakers at lower volume for wider coverage areas. Augmenting that with a subwoofer. Well, that whole system's moved into the house, right, Alex? Have you done these before?
We have, yes. So, this is as you can see, this is a Sonance system. And so a lot of people will call this the Disney World effect. Many of you may have been to Disney World, and you get this air of this music that kind of follows you around. So this is that cloud layer, right? It's coming from somewhere, and it's very pleasant, but you don't have to sit in a different seat because it's too loud right above your head. And so this is an excellent solution. Our GM has it in his house, and it's fantastic. And you pair this with some more Sonance hardware, and you've got a wonderful system that performs well and pleases the eye.
Cool. Any other thoughts on this? Have you used these systems before where the subwoofer is buried up in the ceiling?
Only on the integration side. I haven't been on any new build.
Feels like a good Boston product.
Yeah, very much so.
So let's touch on outdoor speakers a little bit. We talked about mounting 2 to the side of the house. There's all sorts of different form factors now too. Anybody want to touch on those, Mr. Manufacturer?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for us, with our products, with Rock Acoustics, we have the Rock speakers that are in different colors and styles. But when you talk about landscape, we have the ones that have the subwoofer built into them, so you just kind of place them where you want. That one has become more popular because you have the traditional burial sub, and it sounds fantastic, and it fills that yard. But also some people say, well, I want to fill an alcove with just sound, and you can put 2 speakers there, and it gives you good, rich bass, and it simplifies it. But the big thing is, I think a lot of times builders and some integrators are overlooking that outdoor space. And COVID, I think, changed that. Once we realized, hey, we can't go all these places, let's make our paradise our backyard. And I think that's part of that aesthetic, is finding something that sounds good, looks good. We have crazy things like planters. In our industry, we try to sell the landscape system, and that's the most popular. But some people say, wait, my wife wants a bunch of planters in the backyard and puts rose bushes and flowers. Why not give them what they want? And the more you're part of that design process, the less it's about price.
So I'm going to ask the question everyone else wants to ask right now. How many coconuts do you sell?
A lot. More than we should. But that's also, too, I think you were talking about that warm feeling when you go in that room and just wherever you walk. If you walk out into a backyard and you have 4 or 5 palm trees up 20 feet up in the air, and you're hearing the sound, where's it coming from? And it's coming from the trees. There's a wow factor to that. And it's unique and it's different. And I go back to rocks. Those rocks are also available in different colors. So we have a lady just bought, she needed white rocks down in Key West, Florida. She's bought 2 more pair of them yesterday for customers who want that white bleached rock look. So that, again, goes back to the design and the process. And when you make the customers happy in that, music is an emotion, and being that design part of it is you want to include those customers in some of that design aspect.
So I'm going to go
I
back.
also,
Go ahead.
well,
Go ahead.
again, that talking about it before, is the most important part, and working with your landscape architect and making sure you're running those wires, whether they've chosen something or not, it's available. And it's also part of gaining more work too. They may be doing a pool or something in the future. Just run those wires now, hide them, get them ready, and it's a lot easier.
You make a really good point. So the outdoor systems that run on 70 volts don't need as much wiring, right, Alex?
Yeah, so 70 volt is a borrowed technology from the commercial world. And so 2 conductors are all you need, right? So a lot of times if we know there's going to be a pool, or we suspect there's going to be a pool in some future build, we'll pull it to the outside of the house, right? We'll have our landscape wire ready, because once you're outside, right, you can dig up the ground and get it where you need it. But when the customer sees our box or knows that it's there, they're always thinking, well, okay, they're ready. I don't have to tear up the inside of the house that's freshly done. And so, depending on manufacturer, layout, wants and needs in the space, you can do anything you want. And it's got that effect where you're getting all of the audio info from any space in the yard. You can enhance it with subwoofers. As we all know, the way sound travels, we're going to need to boost that low end outside. And so you do that with a 70 volt system, and nobody will be disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what's interesting about these types of speakers is that if you put 4 speakers in someone's backyard and they decide, man, I really wish I'd put 8 out here, as long as your amplifier is sized appropriately, there's no new wires to run from inside out. Just go to the last speaker in the chain and keep adding to that group of speakers. The speakers that are in this picture were originally intended to emulate or simulate a landscape light, so they match the aesthetic of what you have outside. You've probably all seen some of these. The one in the upper right-hand corner there actually has a subwoofer underground attached to the same speaker, and it's a 360-degree radiating pattern, so you can use fewer speakers, hide them in the planters, bury a subwoofer, and have a speaker sort of popping up out of your bushes like Disney World. Right?
Exactly.
The top of the screen here, I've probably shown this picture before, but we had a hardscaped pool with no place to put speakers that wouldn't be ugly. You can sort of see in that detail photo that one of those speakers was embedded into an aluminum enclosure inside the stone wall and faux finish to match the stone. So there's, I think, 8 speakers around that pool. There's 2 subs and the planters that are closer to the house. And it's an amazing install that's almost completely invisible. And this is one of my new favorite products. One of our manufacturers. Have you used these yet, Alex?
I haven't.
Okay.
Anybody who wants to, we can help you get it done.
So there are outdoor towers on the left-hand side. The planter thing in the middle is kind of cool too. But on the far right where the red arrows are, that's actually 2 speakers and 1 really long extruded enclosure. I think they said they'll make it up to 30 feet long. So instead of making it look like 2 speakers mounted to a soffit, you can actually build what looks like a piece of crown molding on the soffit and have it finished to match the paint color in the exterior of the house. So without those arrows, you'd probably never even notice there was a speaker there. All right, I'm going to go back to my tech guy sitting next to me here. So integrated audio and video. So tell me why it's tricky.
It's tricky for a couple reasons. So one of the things that is going on is, you've probably all heard or even thought of it yourself, you want to cut that cord. You want to cut the cable cord because it's getting too pricey. It's not what you typically watch. You haven't, you go to your Netflix, you go to your Prime Video, whatever, and you don't know why you keep paying that cable bill over and over to watch 3 channels. So in that mode, it then begins a conversation of, okay, what is your source and where is it coming from? So when we talk about house audio or multi-room audio, typically that involves a room with video. So if that's the family room in a long open concept build, then maybe it would be nice to hear that not from the TV itself, but maybe from the kitchen. You don't want to turn up the TV so that it's uncomfortable for the people in the family room just to get that audio back to the kitchen. So what do? We source that multi-room zone, so that kitchen comes from a distributed amp. It comes from a piece of hardware that can extract that video's audio and pump it through the house. And so that way, you start to develop these groups. Sonos does it well. And what you can do is then listen in another room to what you're seeing from afar. It also simulates the ability to group. Maybe you have an outdoor space, but the game's on inside, so you can come and go, but still keep track of the game through the speakers. It's tricky because how do you control that? How do you make sure there's no delays, right? You don't want a lip sync issue. That's come a long way, and digital audio does it very well. But the tricky part is determining the source, the area, and the product you need to make that all happen fluidly.
How many of you have Sonos in your house? Nice, Frank's happy.
Yeah.
How many of you have Sonos sound bars? Okay. How many of you wonder why there's an HDMI connection on the Sonos soundbar? You know now because you have them, right? The reason there's an HDMI connection there is because of that exact lip synchronization issue. And everything we've done in the AV industry has made it more complicated. The cable companies have made it really, really difficult to make not just the audio and the video sync on the screen that you're watching, but who has wireless cable box in their house now? So have you ever turned on two TVs in two different rooms to the same channel and noticed that they're not timed the same? Does it make you nuts? Imagine how your customers feel about that. So that's why the integrators become, I think I talked about confusion early on. We solve problems that way. That's one of the problems that we solve with a very, very expensive solution, right? Distributed video and distributed audio that matches is a way to fix that problem. But it has created a whole series of issues for people who want to synchronize the two. And I think probably the most effective solution really is Sonos in that case. You're not going to sync room to room, but you can sync video to audio in a single room. We talked about performance now. We're going to go back the other way and talk about aesthetics again. So that's a picture of a Sonos Arc soundbar underneath the television. Anyone ever installed one like this before? Everyone's installed one like this before. It's not a bad looking device. I think you intentionally made it small so it doesn't overwhelm the room and look out of place with the TV. But we can make it look better. Right? So there's manufacturers, not Sonos, but third-party manufacturers who will make a grill for this. Have you used these before?
We have. Yeah, you get that person of interest in the home that really wants everything to be, neat and tidy. And so Sonos, while it fits all in the listening category, it doesn't quite fit all TVs, especially the bigger you go. That soundbar's not going to change. And so you can definitely go with a custom-sized soundbar, and that is you give them the TV model, and it is built for the TV. It really does make the soundbar look like part of the TV.
And then everybody's next question is, what if I have one of these, right? The frame TV.
I'm actually doing one of these.
Are you?
Yeah, so beautiful home in Belmead. It's not too far from here. And the entire wall, it's a master suite, very bright, vibrant, light blues, whites. And I guess lucky for me, the TV decided to just present a red stripe through the thing. So we presented her with this idea and actually this exact picture. And she said, I love it. When can you install it? So this is the frame bar. And it is a passive sound bar that emulates the size and shape and aesthetic of the frame TV. So the horse there, it's the frame TV made by Samsung. And so what a match, right?
We've seen frame TVs very popular, especially in this category, right? And one of the use cases that we get pulled into often is customers with a frame TV oftentimes don't want a soundbar of any kind, right? They just want the artwork to appear as is. So we'll sell them a Sonos amp and wire it to some in-ceiling speakers, simulate that center channel, and that seems to be a solution that's pretty popular. We have a lot of dealers that are going forward with that solution.
Well, and to Ms. Tara's point, pair that with some invisibles,
Yeah.
and it's a piece of art.
It is all about the aesthetics on our client base. Less is more.
Are you guys doing a lot of frame TVs?
A lot, yeah, that's typical.
I don't have a photo of it here, but there's another manufacturer, actually the same manufacturer that makes that soundbar, that makes art speakers. So it's essentially, it looks like a frame TV with an actual piece of canvas that conceals the speaker. One of them holds a Sonos player, if I recall, right? So you can actually do 3 pieces of artwork on your wall. 2 are speakers and 1's a TV. It's pretty powerful.
You mentioned invisible sound. That does work great, especially if you're putting it over the fireplace. You have a little bit more real estate to work with and putting those kinds of devices behind it.
Nice. And then we touched on this a little bit already, but dedicated theaters, media rooms, speaker placement becomes more and more important. We're going to get into an audiophile discussion here in a couple minutes too, and bore the heck out of you. We're going to do it anyway. Frank, why don't you take a minute and tell us about what's new with the Sonos app and why it's so special?
Yeah, so this is kind of current news because we just announced a couple of days ago that we're going to be refreshing the look and feel of the Sonos app. But more importantly, we're really the operating system of the audio in a house, and that's the way we want to have the conversation with our integrator partners and the building trade. It's all about ease of use, right? The dilemma that you talked about earlier, where there's you've got to deal with audio from streaming devices on the video side, synced with music, synced with podcasts, right? That's really where we fit, is simplifying that experience, management for a homeowner and the entire family, right? This is something that everybody in the family, extended family, needs to be able to operate with ease. It's not, where's dad, because I need to change the system. So simplifying seems to work, and it's really led to a lot of our success. And the Sonos app is at the core of that, right? The ability to have a soundbar default to audio that matches the video, but then be able to easily join another group, another zone, and create a group, right, that maybe all audio, even though the video is still playing, and have that dexterity just be super easy for any homeowner. And really, that's the key behind the Sonos app. Now, having said that, right, in this category, there's a lot of options for control, and so we need to fit well into that community as well. And so our Works with Sonos program, API work, a lot of work behind the scenes so that we can be controlled by other systems that may be going into y'all's houses. So look at it both ways.
So I'm going to show you an amazing diagram that I spent hours and hours drawing for you. I think it's important to sort of break down what a Sonos amp is. So everybody's seen the Sonos tabletop speakers. They're an awesome accessory. They're great retrofit devices. You can plug them in. You can take them with you. There's some battery-powered versions. When an installation company does a Sonos install, typically this is what you're going to see on the back end, either a Sonos port or an amp. This happens to be a Sonos amp in the photograph, a nice little black box. Thank you very much. But there's four things inside that box, right? The first thing is what connects to the internet and connects to your network and your phone to allow the app to control it and to deliver the source of music into the house. The second is a piece of digital analog conversion. So it takes that digital signal and makes it analog so you can actually hear it with your ears. The third piece is going to be a preamplifier, which allows you to control the volume and turn the room on and off. And then there's an amplifier that powers the speakers that are connected to that device. So it's when you think about it in these terms, it's a pretty remarkable product that's all crammed into one little device. But it also means that you can sort of deconstruct it. So if you have a client who likes the Sonos interface but says, you know what, the speakers are not the right size, I don't like the in-ceiling speakers necessarily, you can buy a Sonos product, a port, buy an outboard digital analog converter from any manufacturer that you like. You can spend thousands and thousands of dollars for an audiophile grade DAC. That's a tech term for digital analog converter. You can buy your own preamplifier from any audio manufacturer you like, and then you can buy any amplifier you want and connect it to any pair of speakers that you want. So what I've always loved about this particular product is it gives you a tool in your toolbox to do anything you want. So it can be almost everything to everyone. Streaming services, how many do you offer now?
Yeah, quite a few. The amazing thing about streaming services, I looked this up about a week ago, incredible growth in subscription rates of streaming service. Only 9 years ago, right, 2015, there were 61 million streaming subscriptions in the continental US. Anybody want to take a guess at what that number is today? 660, you were in my boardroom. 660 million,
wow.
Right? So that's over 10x growth and since 2015. 2015 is not that long ago, right? So this is a whole new world of how people consume audio in homes, right? Out of homes as well, but certainly in homes. And so we need to consider that in our designs, in our infrastructure planning. And certainly we as a music company, as the operating system for the music and the sound in your home, we need to have a lot of dexterity with streaming services. And so that's a major design point for us. The new software update that we just announced a couple of days ago hopefully makes it easier for people to navigate and get to their favorite content quickly in the rooms that they want, the areas that they want. It could be outdoor areas. So this is mission critical for us, and really should be for everybody in this room as we serve as homeowners.
All right, this next slide is going to hit home a little bit for you, Frank, and you should be really thankful there's not a room full of integrators here because you get bashed on this. But partner control, right? So I know the story that Sonos thinks their app is the best possible interface for all their music, and that they wanted to keep control of that, and they didn't necessarily make it ubiquitous to work with Savant, Control 4, and Crestron, and Nice, and all the other systems. But you do have some level of integration, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We have a Works with Sonos program. Thanks to the young lady in the corner over there. Thank you, Sarah. Spearheads that effort for our company. But yeah, there's a lot of opinions on this subject. Obviously, as a former integrator myself, I'm a fan of integration. I'm a big believer in APIs and doing the work behind the scenes so that we can offer great user experiences to customers. Right. At the end of the day, that's all what it's about. We want customers to just feel that it's easy and it's magic. If we can do that, we've done our jobs. Right. Delighting homeowners. So this is an important effort that continues on today. I think you'll see some enhancements in this area in the not too distant future, but no, we're firmly committed to playing nice with other control environments. To me, it's a no-brainer. You have to do it, right? And we do have a great app experience, and for people that prefer to move away from the big traditional control system, we've got a great control offering for those folks as well.
All right, Alex, I know you're not a salesperson. I'm going to ask you this question anyway. I mean, two-parter. Tell me why salespeople will sell Sonos to a client and why they won't sell
All right.
to a client.
The first one's really easy. So Sonos has that brand recognition, right? They have that household name that, well, maybe they still call it a Bluetooth speaker, but when they see that logo, or they go to someone's house and they say, let me turn on the music, or they ask Alexa or Google, it's definitely got that brand recognition because someone's friend of a friend had it and it worked. And I can't say enough on how well it works, because it just works. I've had people say it's the Apple of whole home audio. It just works. It's magic. And we know from the tech side that magic isn't magic. It happens for reasons. They have developed this user interface and brand that people recognize, and it is easy to use. Now, there have been times where we run into limitations. We have a house that exceeded the number of products that Sonos app could support. That was nuts. I can share more about it later. It's more of a case of maybe what not to do. The Sonos did its job. We just had to split the house because we exceeded 32 zones of Sonos product. So
Big house.
huge house. Homeowner designed. So anyway, but so it's got that brand recognition that makes it really easy to sell. Reasons to not, I touched just a moment ago, reasons to not is there has been a little, and I'm glad to hear there's work on this, integration has not been 100%. So for a while it was great. It was our go-to. Sonos Streamer, Control 4 system, or fill in the blank system. And they married wonderfully. And you could do everything that you wanted to do with the Sonos within your bigger control system. That changed a little bit over the past few years, but it sounds like it's coming back. And so I'm excited for that, because people who recognize the brand will be happy to hear that it's part of the system. Maybe not the whole system, but it's in the system. Scale is another thing. So the amp that you guys saw earlier, it is as powerful as it is, right? You can't power a whole house with one amp. So there are solutions where you could use a port on a much larger amp to get that distributed audio through the home. So there's almost no reason not to sell it, but there's maybe more of a reason to include it with another device to accomplish what you're looking for.
How much did you pay him to say that?
You're hired.
No, it's honest truth.
So I want to finish up with a brief discussion on audiophile listening. How many of you have done 2-channel listening rooms for a client in a home? None.
One.
One? Who's that? Oh, the Sonos people, of course.
Okay.
How many of you have experienced a good 2-channel demo someplace? You know, Macintosh equipment, Sonos Faber. So, put your hand down, Sonos. No one.
Nobody.
I don't know where you're all from. Actually, I know where some of you are from. There is going to be a 2-channel audio hi-fi place in your hometown someplace. When you've got some time on your hands, which I know you probably don't have a lot, but when you do, stop in and listen. It's I don't want to say life-changing, but you're laughing. Maybe it is life-changing.
Transformative.
Yeah.
It is.
I know the guys in Nashville are all, not all, but most of them are musicians, right?
Yeah, I didn't make the cut.
Okay.
But, may I?
Yeah, go ahead.
As we touched, it's an emotional response. So anybody get the goosebump factor, right? You hear that song from way back. You know, maybe it was, I don't know, a love song. Maybe it puts you back at that concert, your first concert. You get the goosebumps. Imagine experiencing that every time you turn on a hi-fi system. It is a speaker. It is a preamp. It is an amp. It is a source of some sort, but it is a different experience. So there are audiophiles of the world that, and here we go. You might recognize some of these, but they build rooms, they build spaces to sit and listen and hear things that they don't get in the car. There's casual listening, right? That's what most of what we've been talking about, and then there's critical listening. So 2 very different experiences, and this is when we get into the critical listening realm.
Yeah, if you don't want to become a heroin addict, this might be the next best thing.
Yeah.
And this does speak to luxury. It truly
Absolutely.
does. There are the libraries or the study right outside of the entryway that you see $30,000 speakers and a $20,000 amplifier there, and boy, that's an attention getter.
Yeah.
It is.
I've had clients sit down and listen to systems, and so Bravos has a Kansas City location, and Kansas City had a Macintosh and Sonos Faber system that was about $150,000 worth of electronics on display. And I was there in Kansas City with the team and sat down on the couch. There's a milk crate full of old LPs and a nice little turntable on top of the Macintosh stack. And a husband and wife came in. She walked in the room and said, absolutely not. And he said, yeah, you're right. These aren't going to look good in that living room. And Ryan, who is one of the founders of Bravos along with me, sat down and handed him the crate of records to pick out something. He went through and I think he picked out Pink Floyd, The Wall. You know. He went and put it on the turntable, turned it on, and they sat there and listened to almost the entire album. They did not leave the room, and they spent more than $150,000 on speakers for their house. I mean, it is that transformational when you actually experience it, and I think we're missing an opportunity. It's one of those things that when it's done, it just makes a house a home. It makes you comfortable. It makes it enjoyable. Makes it warm, and it makes being home, you know, just a better overall experience. And when you couple something like that, I'm not suggesting that Sonos is always the best source, right? They're better. They're more uncompressed sources to do more justice to these speakers. But I have Sonos running through the Meridians that you see in the top corner. That's not my house, but those are my speakers. I wish that was my house. And I got addicted. I now have 3 pairs of those in my home.
Wow.
Because I moved from room to room and realized that they're all different sizes, but they're all Meridian speakers, that I was missing the experience from the main room in the other rooms. So I have a pair in my office, I have a pair in the living room, and I have a pair in the family room that's connected to the kitchen. And I had a friend come by the other day when I was working with the windows open. It was nice out, and he texted me and he said, I was ringing the doorbell. What the hell are you doing in there? But the UPS guy thinks I'm insane too. But it really does change everything. And I didn't have the luxury of all those speakers and all that experience. But now that I've got it, I can't go back.
Yep.
So any other comments on audiophile level listening?
Has anyone built a dedicated listening room?
Sonos people, again.
Yeah?
See a few heads nodding.
Yeah? So one of the most important things is the speakers, the source, the speakers, the power, all the hardware that goes into a critical listening area. But the other thing that can be taken into consideration are the room acoustics, right? A little Bluetooth speaker, no matter how good it is in this room or a room bigger, is not going to perform well. So you can incorporate these plans and these ideas along with a designer or an architect because not all speakers are equal. And so if you have someone who is a big fan of art and maybe they really want to showcase that in their home, give them a piece of art in a speaker, right? So we touched earlier that do you want it to look good and sound good? Well, yes. Do you want your art to look good? Yes. So it is more than just a means of getting electricity turned into mechanical movement through the air into your ears. It can be what I would like to see is it be the centerpiece. You know, in the picture in the previous slide, there was a piano, right? How many houses have pianos? A lot of them. So pair up a speaker in a music room and you have an experience that guy down the street doesn't have.
And I will tell you that if you've got a client that is interested in exotic cars, I don't care what kind of car it is, once they demo something like this, it's a pretty easy transition. It's like going from crack to heroin, right? I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
The drug references are pretty good.
We're going to have to talk after.
I know. I'm going to go head for a program when I leave here. But it's a similar appeal. So you have an opportunity to impress upon that client something they wouldn't have experienced otherwise, and they'll probably be grateful to you for introducing them to that world because it really is unique.
And the worst that can come out of that is they had a really fun time at a showroom.
Yeah. So
and a good integrator will have these available to listen to, lighting to experience, and the things that are important and the choices that your client can make. It makes all the difference when they hear and see the difference.
So you've had success doing this, I would imagine, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, on the integration side, a good showroom that represents in a sound room, like the same thing. People come in looking at one thing, they listen to the speakers, and they walk out with the speakers, right? So, and they'll stay there for an hour, and the turntable, and it's nostalgic, it's emotional, and they find room for them.
So I'm going to ask one more person the question. Stephanie, you're the interior designer in the room. How do you feel about big speakers like that? So we just got designer approval too.
There you go.
So any questions? I think we're sort of through the slides here. Yeah, so the question, I'll repeat it for the video. The question is, what about streaming audio quality, right? And video too. Well, 4K streaming can actually, if your internet connection is stable enough, you can actually do a really nice job and actually get 4K streaming. Audio is a little bit different. There's some uncompressed sources. Deezer, what Tidal?
Tidal, yep.
What am I forgetting?
Yep.
Thank you.
Cubase, yeah.
Yeah, we have support for some uncompressed audio formats. It's going to require more bandwidth. It's going to take more bandwidth, you know, on both sides of the firewall, right? But for your audiophile client, absolutely. And there's higher end DACs available, right? There's lots of equipment out there, and Sonos may not always be the right solution. So my final thought for the group would be, you know, lean on your professional installer, right? I think we started this session by saying, hey, let's talk about audio for a few minutes, right? It seems to be kind of a forgotten category, but it could be the most important, right? It really moves the needle when it comes to emotional attachment of a living space and people's overall happiness in a living space that you guys build. So we pride ourselves on our professional installer network. We've got 4,000 installers across the country. One of them in the room, Guardian, great partner. If you're not happy with your installer, talk to a manufacturer. We'll share with you other options. But there really is a lot of talent out there, and lean on these folks to make sure that your design centers have the best possible experience, so your homeowners can see what's possible. And if that's not a viable option, lean on them and use their showrooms. Bring your clients.
Anecdotally, my son's 20 years old, and he comes home from school with his phone and connects to the speakers and sits on the couch and listens to music. And he likes not having headphones on. He enjoyed that a lot. And he's playing a song, and I said, "Oh, I have that CD." And he said, "Really?" So I popped it in my Super Audio CD player with my outboard digital analog converter and put it on the same speakers, pretty much within 30 seconds of him hearing it before, and he was absolutely blown away, as was I. I was shocked at the actual difference. So to your point, there is a huge difference between a compressed streaming signal and a lossless or a completely uncompressed digital signal.
And you mentioned SACD. There's SACD and DVD audio. There's other formats that you can access that will just make you cry. They sound so amazing. But they do, I will say too, anybody that has a model home, if you have a showroom, play concert DVDs or play concert movies. You can find a lot online, just find different concerts. Tuesday when we're setting up here, I was playing Peter Frampton. One of the other vendors across the way from me said, "Oh man, always want to see Peter Frampton in a concert." He stopped touring and said, "He's doing another tour one last time." And immediately he goes and starts looking up the concert. And that's the thing. All of a sudden, one song created that energy for this guy to go see someone he's always wanted to go listen to and perform.
Yeah. So this is a room full of luxury builders. Not a lot of showrooms, I don't think.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're doing demos, it's awesome. Thanks, everybody. We're out of time. I really appreciate your attention for this hour. It's great seeing everybody. Hopefully I'll see you at the next event. And I think they're going to go try and sell you stuff on the show floor now. So head on up there and go to your one-on-one meetings. But have a safe trip home and hope to see you all soon.
Thank you.